Let's talk about something that's way more than just food. We're diving into Central Texas barbecue. And look, this is a cultural phenomenon, a sacred tradition, really a pilgrimage for some folks. And the wildest part? It's all built around taking one of the toughest, most stubborn cuts of beef and turning it into an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah, this sign, it hangs outside a legendary spot in Austin, and it says everything you need to know. This isn't just a catchy slogan, it's a promise. It's what happens at the very end of a long, patient journey, a journey that transforms this unforgiving piece of meat into something so tender, so juicy, you barely even have to chew.
So where did this all even come from? I mean, to really understand the legend of Texas brisket, you've got to go all the way back to the beginning, back to the raw material and, more importantly, to the people who looked at it and saw potential where no one else did. Okay, so what is brisket? It's the pectoral muscles from the chest of a cow. Think about it, these muscles work hard all day long, and because of that, they are packed with tough muscle fibers and just tons of connective tissue. But here's the thing, that toughness isn't a flaw, it's the whole point. It's the challenge that makes the final, tender result such an incredible, incredible achievement.
You know, the story of Texas brisket is really an immigrant story. It kicks off back in the 1830s, when German and Czech settlers started arriving in Central Texas. They brought with them these amazing old-world skills in butchery and smoking meat. So they set up meat markets, and being practical people, they didn't want anything to go to waste. They'd smoke the leftover, less desirable cuts, and brisket was one of them. What started as just a smart way to preserve meat became this huge local favorite, usually just served on butcher paper to workers who needed a cheap, filling meal.
So from those really humble beginnings, a true craft was born. And it's defined by this incredibly pure, minimalist approach. It all boils down to a deep respect for three simple but absolutely essential elements. We're talking the holy trinity of ingredients.
First up, and this is non-negotiable, the beef. You just can't make a masterpiece out of so-so ingredients. Today's pitmasters are fanatics about quality. They're hunting for beef with the highest grades, like USDA Choice, or even better, Prime. What they're looking for is that beautiful marbling, those little flecks of intramuscular fat. Because during that long cook, all that fat melts, basting the meat from the inside out and guaranteeing that unbelievably juicy, tender brisket. This quote from the legendary Aaron Franklin, well, it gets to the absolute core philosophy of Texas barbecue. When you start with beef that good, you don't dare cover it up. The classic rub, they call it a Dalmatian rub, is as simple as it gets. Just coarse, kosher salt and coarsely ground black pepper. That's it. The goal is not to pile on a million different flavors, it's to amplify the rich, beefy flavor that's already there.
And the third member of our trinity is the fire itself, or more specifically, the wood that fuels it. And in Central Texas, the fuel of choice is the locally abundant post oak. So, why post oak? Well, for one, it burns slow and steady, which gives you consistent heat for hours and hours. But even more important is the smoke it produces. It's mild, it's clean, and it's got this slightly sweet character. It adds a beautiful flavor that complements the beef perfectly without ever overpowering it.
All right, so you've got the perfect meat, the simple rub, and the right wood. Now comes the really hard part. We're talking about the long, patient, painstaking process of the cook itself. This is the trial by fire, where a cook becomes a true pitmaster.
You hear this phrase thrown around all the time with barbecue, right? Low and slow. But what does it actually mean, and why is it so absolutely critical when you're dealing with a brisket? Low and slow is basically a form of magic, culinary alchemy. You're holding that brisket at a super low temperature, right around 225 degrees Fahrenheit for, get this, 12, 14, sometimes 18 hours. And what this does is it gives all that tough connective tissue the time it needs to perform a miracle. It doesn't just get tender, it literally melts down into this rich, beefy gelatin that coats every single muscle fiber. That's the secret to that signature, succulent, fall-apart texture.
And this quote just gets to the heart of it. A pitmaster isn't just following a recipe card. No way. They are managing a chaotic, living element, a live wood fire. For hours on end, their entire job is to control temperature, airflow, combustion. It's a craft that demands intuition, incredible patience, and this really deep, almost instinctual understanding of heat and smoke. And listen, not all smoke is created equal. A pitmaster's #1 job, their main mission, is to maintain a clean fire that produces good smoke. That's the pure, sweet smoke you can barely even see, often called blue smoke. Now, if the fire starts to smolder or it gets choked of oxygen, you get bad smoke. It's that thick, white, billowy stuff, and it is acrid.
It'll completely ruin a brisket, leaving this bitter, nasty aftertaste. The skill is in knowing the difference.
So after more than half a day of pure patience, of wrestling with fire and smoke, of just trusting the process, something incredible finally happens. That tough, humble cut of meat completes its journey. The transformation is complete.
And this is the prize, that absolutely beautiful pink ring right beneath that dark, crunchy bark. Now, let me be clear, that is not undercooked meat. No. That is the signature of a master at work. It's the visual proof that this brisket was cooked with patience, with skill, and with a real wood fire.
So what's actually going on here? Well, it's just pure chemistry. Gases from the burning post oak, specifically nitrogen dioxide, they dissolve on the moist surface of the brisket. This gas then has a chemical reaction with a protein in the meat called myoglobin. That's the same protein that makes raw meat look red. And that reaction essentially cures the very edge of the meat, locking in that pink color and stopping it from turning brown as it cooks. Pretty cool, right?
But the story doesn't just end with the science, or even when the brisket is sliced. Because in Texas, brisket isn't just something you eat. It's an event. It's something you experience together.
If you want to get a sense of the scale of this thing, just look at that number. Almost 3,000 barbecue restaurants spread all across the state of Texas. This is not some niche food trend. It is a bedrock of the entire culture, an institution that's as fundamental to the Texas identity as anything else you can name.
And yeah, if you go to one of the truly legendary spots, you are going to wait in line. For hours. But here's the secret. The line isn't a chore. It's not a bub. It's a feature. It's part of the ritual. It's like a tailgate party in the morning where you're hanging out, sharing stories, maybe sipping a beer, and building this incredible sense of shared anticipation with total strangers. That wait, I promise you, makes that first bite taste so much better.
And when you're in that line, what is everyone talking about? Well, it always comes back to the meat. The writer Calvin Trillin put it perfectly. He said you don't hear people arguing about the potato salad or the sauce. All the talk, all the obsession, all the reverence, it is focused on one thing and one thing only, the brisket.
So when you look at the whole story, from those immigrant butchers trying to save a few scraps, to the pitmasters who tend to fire all through the night, to the pilgrims who will wait for hours in line just for a taste, you really have to ask yourself, is this just a recipe for a tough piece of meat, or is it something more? A craft, a community, a tradition that's held so deeply. It starts to feel a lot like faith.